Hello. Today we're going to be talking about Chris Rock Tamborine. There's a new Netflix comedy special that came out on Valentine's Day. There is some jokes in there about relationships and love, but it's not the only topic of his stand-up routine. It's, I believe, shot in Brooklyn, and this is his first special in a while. I remember the last few I've really liked. This one's good too. I would say it's not as good as his previous ones, but it's still pretty good. I consider Chris Rock one of the top comedians, and he's still pretty funny. Even if his jokes aren't as great, it's his like delivery and presence on stage that make them funny. And overall, it's a really good show. So he starts out talking about the Black Lives Matter, police brutality towards black men, and how, even though he's rich and famous, from a distance, he's still just considered a black man until he's up close. Then they consider him a rich and famous person. And he talks about that. He talks about, raising your kids in this kind of climate, raising black kids in this kind of climate, and how, he teaches his daughters that, the white man's there to suppress him and them, and, he's been doing that since birth so that they know how to fight back and they know how to deal with it and things like that. And he jokes about it, but it's, it's a topic that probably hits home for him. And, he talks about his one daughter going to high school and how the orientation was just way too positive and everything like that. And they were talking about how you could be anything, which isn't true, and how there's no bullying. But he actually disagreed with that and said that the world needs bullies, which, yeah, in a way, you can kind of see his argument, the way he presents it. I don't know if he actually believes it or not, but he has a funny way of presenting his point of view, and that bullies are needed to show people that there's jerks in the world so that they don't find out when they're 30 and, trying to make a career. They find out when they're young and they learn how to deal with it. And then he actually compares that to Trump winning the election, and how because we didn't know how to deal with bullies, we didn't know how to deal with Trump. So that was pretty funny. He does go into Trump a bit. He talks about how when Bush was president, he was so bad that we eventually got Obama. And now he's like, well, you should be hopeful, because if Trump's bad, then maybe we'll get something good at the other side of it. And so that was funny. He actually goes on a bit about it with comparing Bush to somebody who's done a lot for the black culture, just because of the way he paved the way for Obama to be president. So that was funny. And he talks about gun control, going hunting with his grandpa. He has recently been through a divorce, so there's a lot of material in there about that. And that's actually where the tambourine title comes from. He was talking about how, well, it's interesting when a person who just went through a divorce gives advice, but he gave advice, and one of the things he said was that you got to treat a marriage or a relationship like it's a band, that sometimes you're the lead singer and sometimes you're the one in the background playing the tambourine. So, it's not always you getting the glory. So it was an interesting analogy for sure, and one he brings up a few times in his special, so I guess that's why they call it Tamborine. But it's a fitting title. And he does go on to, he talks about the divorce, he talks about, going to court for custody and things like that. And there's some good material there. It's pretty funny. And it talks about dating now that he's divorced and how different it is, and the difference between dating women his age and dating women that are younger than him. He also goes into religion a little bit. Like he said, that's actually how he put it. He said he's becoming religious, but only a little bit, because he doesn't think he needs to look for God. God can find him, that kind of thing. And he talks about how, God's not perfect, and he points out some of what could be considered God's mistakes. And he talks about the you know, how people think they need to do things for God, but that's kind of an insult because, you know, if he was this perfect person that people believe, he wouldn't need anybody's help, that kind of thing. And he doesn't talk too much about it, so it doesn't really get to the point where it might offend somebody. It's just he has some funny jokes about mostly the part where he talks about God's mistakes and how he's not perfect. There's some funny jokes in there, and you know that's pretty much the whole set. It's a little over an hour and it goes really well. Like there's no lulls. It's all pretty steady, funny jokes. There's no jokes that like don't hit. The audience is a little off sometimes. Like they seem to be clapping when they should be laughing and laughing when they should be clapping. There's a couple of moments like that where there's some indecisiveness in the audience that kind of takes a little bit away from the jokes. But overall, for his material, it's pretty good. And like I said, it's Chris Rock. He's one of the top comedians, and you can't really go wrong with watching one of his specials. And so this is Chris Rock Tamborine, and it was released today, Valentine's Day, and it's a good comedy special. It's a Netflix original, and I'm gonna rate it 4 out of 5 stars on Netflix, and give it an 8 out of 10 overall. So that's Chris Rock Tamborine. Definitely recommended. So if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, or all of the above. Thank you, and have a nice day.